What's up, guys? Synthetic Division here. So this is the fifth and final video in the series of the overheating Bitaxe Gammas. Again, these were purchased in a bulk buy. Today is going to be a good one. So this is going to be our all-in-one solution kit. Now this is the El Mirage heatsink kit from IX Tech. It comes with thermal paste, fan and shroud, the El Mirage cooler, which is a pretty solid bare aluminum cooler, and then the hardware. Pretty cool kit. It's $13.99 on their website, plus a little bit of freight. It's a great solution. We'll see how it stacks up with the rest of the stuff we've been doing here. We will be using aluminum heat sinks on this one, same style of placement like we normally do. But because I lost the footage of the ASIC chip being tested, that's the first thing we're going to do. So we can go ahead and move this stuff just off to the side over here. And let's get started with the ASIC chips test. Now we're testing the heatsink on the back. I told you guys before, I think it's hokey. It doesn't work, but I want to prove it to you. So this is the heatsink we're going to use back there. We're going to do aluminum on this since we've got this freaking awesome brushed aluminum cooler. We're definitely going to go with an aluminum heatsink. So I'm going to show you the temps and thermals real fast. So this is the Bitaxe 2. I have it pulled up right here on HashWatcher. Let's see if we can get that glare out of there. So let's go like this. Let's try that. So right about there, you can see 57 on the ASIC and 76, 75 on the voltage regulator. So let's go ahead and get this one cooled down. Now, before I proceed, let's talk about my settings. So I always set mine at 611.50, which in the HashWatcher app, when you unlock the overclocking, that sets it to 1.2 terahash generally. And yeah, so about 23 watts. So 50% fan speed is where I always go. That way we have plenty of fan overhead to try to keep it from catching fire. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's place this heatsink and then we'll check thermals on the way back through. Okay, as I predicted, guys, and as we've seen before, we look at our HashWatcher app. If anything, the temperature got a degree higher. So that is pointless. Again, don't put a one behind the ASIC. It doesn't seem to do anything. Now this is the tricky part. Getting these off while they're warm is probably your best bet. So if I can get this one off, I will. I try to use a pair of pliers if I can, but yeah, I don't like to do it when it's on, but I might have to, or at least warm enough. Let's go ahead and grab a pair of pliers and see if we can get this off there. I've got it right here. I'm going to unplug it. It's hot, so I'm going to pull it off now. If you ever have to pull heat sinks, this is the way to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and just use these. Just tilt it, and it comes right off. Tape's still there. So let's go ahead and let's just get it like how we always have, how we prove that it's working. We can put our heat sinks on. We'll get this back one put on. So I'm going to go ahead and I got to tear this all down. So I'll get it tore down and show you where I'm going to place heat sinks. And then we'll go into the cooler itself. Okay, guys, so I'm going to bring you along for the journey here. I've got it off the stand. That takes a few seconds, but we're going to get these off there. So I'm going to use my squints here real quick and pinch these like that and then let it kind of push through. Like, again, sometimes these things fly out. If it flies out, it's not a big deal. Just try not to lose it. And you got to line it up and then pinch it. And you can hear it kind of click. We'll do the same thing there. These little wire cutter or wire strippers actually work really well. They got like a little tiny plier teeth head. And then we'll push it through, and I think we got that one. Just make sure. Okay. We're going to pop through. I'm curious to see what the thermal paste looks like because this one is kind of getting warmer than most of them. Again, my room in here is 72 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, look at that thermal paste application. Absolute trash. This is terrible. All 5 of these have had nothing but garbage for thermal paste application. It's kind of crazy to me because you spend, well, these ones were cheap. So I guess I get what I pay for. So I'm going to get it cleaned up and then I'll get it ready for the thermal paste application. So hang in there, guys. Okay, guys, so we're all cleaned up, looking much better. So I went ahead and did a little bit of research on how to get this installed because let's be real, I've never done one of these. So they mentioned that you want 1 millimeter of space between the board and the heatsink. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to crush the ASIC with the pressure from the bolts. Okay, so we know that. Couple things you'll need. I have two of these drivers. This is a 2 millimeter hex. This is a 5.5 millimeter nut driver. So the first thing they mention is just to go ahead and get your thermal paste put on. So we'll go ahead and put, this is their thermal paste that they send me. It's from Thermal Right. So let's go ahead and put a little bit on there. Okay. Don't need too much. That should be good. The reason I chose this kit was because of the pricing. Honestly, and it shipped pretty fast, even though it was during our crappy weather. So they did say to go ahead and put your screws in first. We'll put all of our screws in. Yeah, it shipped pretty quick considering that the weather was crummy where it came from. It's been pretty beautiful weather here, so we want this lined like this to where the air is venting up to down. And they basically just said wiggle it into place, get it all, and then put some pressure on it just to kind of hold it in place. This is going to be tricky. Might need two hands for this, but I'm just going to go ahead and try it like this. These are nylock nuts, so just be warned with that. Nylock nuts, they can be hard to take off, and but they won't wiggle loose from vibrating fans or anything like that. They have a pretty good instructional video too on how to put this on, so hopefully I do it right. It seemed like a pretty solid instructional video. So we'll tip it up like this again, and again, you want 1 millimeter of space between the bottom of the board and the heatsink. Let's drop that. Little tiny 5.5 millimeter. That's pretty small. So, okay, and I'm not so worried about the other screw falling out. And the reason I decided to put the cooler on first was, well, if the cooler is slightly larger, it might take up some space where we need to put heat sinks. So, okay, so now we're going to work on getting that space put. And they basically said just put it like this, put your nut driver in there, and tighten them up a little bit. So we're going to do that, and then we'll tighten it up. Okay. We should see a gap underneath there, about a millimeter gap, like I said. So don't go too crazy. You don't want to crush the ASIC chip. You don't want the board flexing. You just need it to be tight. And you should see a gap. So I'm holding it up to my light if you can't see that. I'm trying to hold it up to my light to see if there's a gap in there because I don't want it to crush the ASIC. I imagine the ASIC chip can be pretty fragile, so let's keep holding it up to the light here, just making sure we're good. Honestly, I think we're pretty good. Okay, so then set it like this. This is kind of a cool toolless and boltless design for their fan. You just take the fan and slide it right into these notches right here, like so, and it just slides right in. And then you can plug in your fan. Maybe if I can see what I'm doing here. Good Lord Almighty. Okay, so we are plugged in. Let's get it all positioned in. I think we're in a good spot. Hopefully we don't have too much ASIC pressure. We might actually power it up just to make sure we don't have too much heat on or too much pressure on the ASIC. So let's go ahead and fire it up real quick and make sure. And I'm going to make sure it starts hashing before I do anything, just to ensure that the heatsink is on correctly and that we're not too much pressure on that ASIC chip. That way we don't break anything. So let's wait for the Hash Watcher app to come up. It says connecting. Also, watch for a thermal runaway because we don't want that either. Okay, so we're hashing. We got a pretty good start there. Just to check, you know. And pool's alive. It's hashing. Good, good, good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll continue on here. So let's go ahead and unplug it and see what I meant by cutting off a little bit of that corner for your heatsink. So let's go ahead and unplug it again. And then we'll start placing our heat sinks. And on this one, we're going to use one here, one, and we're going to try to get one up in here, probably one of these littler ones. And then we're going to get one right here on the inductor coil. And I have that one I pulled off the back of the ASIC chip there. I'm just going to put it back. Let's put the little one on there on the voltage regulator first. That one seems to do the best trick as far as getting it on first. So let's get it put on. Put it on. Again, make sure you don't touch any components. You don't want to touch anything together. And then we'll put our VR one or our inductor coil one on right about there. Okay. Now let's pull that one off again real quick. We might need to move it just a touch. Right there. Okay, sorry, I had to use my squints there. Perks of bad vision, I guess. So, all right, and we're gonna do two, or do one right there on the back again, and those are gonna be on those two little caps right there. Those little capacitors get pretty toasty, so, and we're gonna try to fit two on the front if we can, and I think we can do this one first. Like I said, I like to put them right above those little gold pads right here near the barrel jack. But if we're going to put two on there, we might need one more like this style long one, and see if we can't fit it in there. And I'm going to use the tweezers to put this on because this one's kind of a pain for me. So mainly because I'm blind. I know I say that a lot, but it's really, really true. So we'll put it right about there. We may have to use a slightly smaller one because I'm afraid, oh, we might be able to get that one in there. Let's try that. And I think this will be pretty much optimally set. Get that little paper off. Now I'm going to pull off screen for just a second while I get use my squints here. Again, you don't want it touching the barrel jack or the heat shield of the ESP32 right there. So we're in a great spot. We're just enough room away from the barrel jack where we're not touching, and away from the this is an RF shield. It's an interference shield, so no biggie there. But it's not a heatsink. Don't put a heatsink there. Okay, I think we're set up. I'm gonna get it back in the stand, and we'll fire it up and see how it's doing. Well, there we are, guys. 53 and 52. That's pretty solid. Um, yeah, that's a pretty good number. This is a pretty chunky heatsink too. This is called again the El Mirage from IX Tech. $13.99. Really not a bad idea. If you're just outfitting one or two, this would be a real solid option for them. I have multiple different ones. I have like that one from Tiny Chip Hub. It's like 60, 70 bucks, which is about as much as like the Ice Tower Plus or the Argon or whatever ones they have, plus a Noctua fan. Um, you're about the same amount of money as the Tiny Chip Hub one. But a simple little $13.99, you get a heatsink, a fan, some thermal compound, hardware to put it in, and then maybe a buck worth of heat sinks if we can think about it. But really, really good combo. Not my lowest one, but that could be the Silicon Lottery, or it could be me not having this enough pressure on it. It seems like it's got enough pressure. It's not thermal overloading. And again, remember that we are overclocked already. We are 611.50. So pretty solid numbers. We'll put it in the storage room, and then I think this will end up being essentially a 6-part series, but the last one just being overall performance gains and or not performance gains, but thermals and stuff like that. But it's been a lot of fun making these videos, guys. This was a fun setup because, like I said, out of the box, most of these were overheating. I think the only one wasn't was one of them. There was one out of 5 were not overheating when I got them. So yeah, fan curve is always set to 50 as its minimum. I'm curious to see what's going to happen in the summertime because my office area is 72 degrees C's, but it's 68 in there right now, and I leave the windows cracked in the storage room. Summertime, it might get a little warmer in there, so we may have to bring down the overclocks to keep up with that, but we still got a few months before that. So, and of course, I'll post an update about that. But anyways, guys, check out some of the other videos I have about these same bulk axes, as we're calling them. I appreciate you taking time to come on over and watch it. Like and subscribe. Peace out.